Welcome, everyone. Committee of the Whole, Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Inca, Kappa, and Silk people. Adoption of minutes 2.1, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes, February 17th, 2026. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on February 17th, 2026 be adopted. Councillor Baxter, Councillor Olgan. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Thank you. Carry. No unfinished business. New business 4.1, strategic planning discussion. Discussion to be held by Mr. Rick Green, CAO, and you have your little foldouts in front of you. CAO, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So what I wanted to do is take some time to go through each of the items in the strategic plan and just remind everybody of where we're at, try and give you an idea of, at least from where my knowledge is, where we've progressed on various items. This is a good time that if you have information that's different than what I have, it'd be a great time to share. And we can work through the entire package. And then also if there's other things that are of current interest for you that we might want to take a look at this year, we can add that on at the end. I know there's one thing in particular that I'm interested in talking about a little bit more is housing, but we'll get to that at the end. So I think it's fairly important to understand that the goal here is to sort of review and understand priorities. And if you want to shift any priorities at this point based on what we've been working on and what we haven't achieved, noting that the plan itself was what I'd call fairly lofty as far as goals based on the times that we're in right now and the let's call it turmoil, I guess, of the last few years. There's been a lot going on and a lot of distractions. So some things don't get complete, some things do. So this is a good opportunity to have a look at all this. And if you've got some particular things that you'd like to focus on this year, this is a good time to tell us. That clear enough for everybody? Okay, thank you. So land use development. So what I've tried to do with the tables here is get the graphics from the actual strat plan on the left of each of these pages, and then try and do a little graphic of where we're at. Red being we probably haven't started it at all, yellow being it's in progress, and green means it's generally complete. So from a housing strategy perspective, there was an action, develop housing strategy or develop housing advisory board for strategic plan. I don't believe we have an advisory board at this point. There was some talk at some point of moving into more of a housing authority type of a model. How all that works, I don't believe we've got there. Has anybody got any concerns either way on that?
Well, I think for myself, I mean, we need to talk about it, but I think until we get a decision on the trailers, we're kind of in that limbo situation.
Right.
And I think once that resolves itself, then we have I think a clearer picture of where we could go. And I think that's when we should talk about forming an advisory group once we cross that hurdle. And then, you know, just like going to going to whatever it is, then, you know, council can decide and work with staff to figure out what's going to work best for the community. And that's just me. I don't know what anybody else would. Councilor Egan?
Yeah, I just wanted to know where we actually sit with the trailers right now, because I
See the camera.
Okay.
But what I would suggest is you ask CAO after, but we can't say this. It's in camera at this point in time. Councilor Rogan.
So I hear what you're saying. I feel that it would have been beneficial to have this group from day one. We have been making some decisions around housing, and I think that it would have been beneficial to have that feedback. So sooner or later, we are going to need it. So it's worth it to wait until we deal with the trailers, or we can implement it something else. So that could be pretty much up to us.
If I may, on the last page, when we get there, it's sort of any other ideas, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit more then, specifically about the housing. We have some sort of high level decisions to make on housing that I think we've been trying to get across for quite some time now. And I think we just got to simplify the questions a little bit and give you something different to look at. So we can get into that later if that works for you.
Yep. No, Counselor Hogan.
So question for the staff again, so just to have a good understanding here. So this is in red, meaning that nothing has happened. So was this an instruction from since 2023 from council to create this group? And if so, why didn't go anywhere?
So all of these items are your strategic plan. To the best of my knowledge, these are all items that came out of your planning session that are your goals that you would expect of staff to move forward. So if we haven't done something, it's either been for a lack of decision-making or direction or lack of staff in order to get something moved forward based on priorities. Generally one or the other, I would think. So something like that being the actual advisory board, that's something that hasn't been moved forward based on no direction from council on how they want to go at it.
So question on the advisory board. Would this be internal or would this be people from the community involved with counselors? What does this look like? Do we know?
I think that would have to be determined
Okay.
when we discuss what a board looks like. I mean, in a perfect world, there should always be a little bit of community interaction in anything that we're doing, so we get a better cross-section with some representation of council. But that'll be your decision at that time.
Counselor Hogan.
Thank you for the clarification. So my biggest concern, so if we will go over this document, you will see all these items that are on red. There was a lot of implementation in 2024. So I understand that this was a result of the strategic planning. And at some point, we have to make sure that this is attainable. Because if it's not, for the staff, rather that we have to allocate money to be able to proceed with these projects, or we have to have enough manpower to be able to do it. I want also feedback from the staff say, I'm sorry, but this is not, we won't be able to achieve what it's proposed here. So I want that communication as well.
Yeah, and actually, when I went and tried to make this, I did engage with a number of people on staff to try and get a better idea of where things were at, because part of this is me understanding where this is at, because we're getting into something new now. So part of the feedback was, well, I don't want to put something in red because that means I haven't done anything. Well, we don't want to focus on the fact you haven't done anything. I mean, everything has a reason for it. We've done a lot of things. A few things haven't been done for one reason or another, but we want to make sure we establish priorities. If it's something that's important to you all right now, we may need to adjust what we're doing. What I'm interested in is moving forward and understanding what your priorities are. And more than anything, making sure that where I think everything is at is correct for what everybody else thinks. So staff has had input in these graphs already. And hopefully we don't get a whole lot of dissension in where you think we're at, but everybody's opinion at this point on status would be great. So one thing I would note is I did send out the strategic plan early, probably about 4 weeks ago, and there hasn't been any feedback on that. So I'm assuming generally everybody's okay with the content of it. Now it's just a matter of setting the priorities and making sure we understand where things are at.
Counselor Charney.
I think council did discuss housing, the future of the housing, and we had quite a conversation as to whether we wanted to hire someone internally to be in charge of housing, or whether we were going to externally hire a company to do the housing project. And I may be totally incorrect, but I think it was voted on that we get an external group to do the housing. Now, where it's gone from there, I don't know.
Okay. Counselor Etchart.
Well, in the last term, when we had the temporary housing, we did have the management go to one of the professional companies. And because it was temporary housing, we ended up with a few issues with maybe some tenants not wanting to leave in the end. And I think conversations that have happened then what seemed to be that it might be easier to have somebody that works with the city to do that. And I think that's why in the past it was kind of looked at like maybe having a term contract for 2 years to see where we were going to go. But all of us coming together, making a decision on what the plan was, I think we were wanting to get through the mobile homes first, but that's just what my understanding was. But I do know that it seemed to be that if the city had their own manager, it seemed to be more control over what happened with the rented units as opposed to having a management company. Because I know there was some complications that we didn't expect.
Well, I know that we had a discussion, I think with the last CAO, where we had a discussion whether we wanted to be a land group, renters, or builders with a partner. And I think that were the three options, but I don't think we ever went any further than a decision on that. I kind of recall us talking about that. And I don't think we've actually made a decision on what we want that to look like at this point. So we're going to talk about this more at the end.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the decision is. I think there's been a lot of conversation about housing, and I think there's been a lot of gray areas and plans brought in together that maybe confuse the issue a little bit. I think ultimately council's gonna have to decide, and this is on the back page, by the way, whether or not we want to be an owner that rents, whether we want to partner with somebody that manages for us, or whether we want to build and sell. One way or the other, we have some housing money in Merritt. We want to build housing out of it. The unfortunate part is we've removed 31 units from Merritt so far is basically the activity. And we got to rebuild that and try and get housing back into Merritt where those have come out. So after a couple of years, we're actually down units, I believe, but it's all part of a transition, right? So I think that ultimate, what does it look like at the end is where we need to start of how we want to manage this. Does that involve an advisory board? Does it involve a housing authority? And how do we want to do this? Do we want to stratify things? Do we want to, I think what gets us confused a little bit is we start talking about commercial, residential splits and all the options in this, where I think if we just decide how we want to go at this from a perspective of, are we going to be owner renters, partners, or build and sell? If we can start on a high level question, work our way into the details as we go, I think it'll be a little bit easier to swallow.
Councilor Egan.
Yeah, thank you. I just think it's really hard to make that decision if we don't know how much money we have. So that again defaults back to the trailers. So.
Yeah. And we do have a direction on the trailers right now that we're taking. We're letting things play out. And we have previous instruction one way or the other. When this lands, we'll know more about where we're going and how much money we have to work with. Right. So that's coming up fairly soon. But when it does come up, that question of where we want to go, I think needs to start being answered because it's going to dictate projects and what it is we're trying to achieve. Stratifying things, working with a partner, doing subsidized housing through, potentially BC Housing or not. These are all pretty critical decisions in how this is going to move forward and what we're going to get out of it. What I've been fairly firm on, talking about this for as long as I've been involved in it, is that I would not like to see a situation where we run our housing money into the ground where it's all gone and we just snap our hands up and walk away from where we're at. It'd be nice to do something that continually regenerates itself so that we can maintain that impact on the community.
Councilor Richard.
I know when Sean Smith was still our CAO, we had talked about a housing corporation at one point in time, and that was not long after the flood. This is one of the options that had come up, one of many conversations, and I think it could work, especially if we had somebody that's already been working in the project like Holly. Not every project is perfect, but I think with the modular construction options that we have, if we had some small projects, even without the unit sold necessarily, if there was some funds in there, if we can start with a smaller project and maybe have it stratified so it was available for sale, we could even, I think it would be something to consider because it's a project and these things take some time to plan anyway, and then we're actively doing something with the fund. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll touch a little bit more on that at the end.
Yep. So of the things that we have got going on, the complete housing affordability study and the create inventory of available underused, underdeveloped lands. So those are studies that have been done. Holly's done a lot of work on those the last couple of years. We've been here 2 years now. They're in progress. Most of these documents, when we're doing these things, you're going to find in my mind that they're yellow. completing something that would be considered more of a living document. You're never really done. But definitely when we're in the yellow, it's in progress, it's moving forward, and we have a lot to work with at that point. Green would be for something that has a finite completion, not necessarily a living document. A lot of these, you know, the affordability studies, the inventories, those are ongoing things that we're going to manage as we go. Engage consultants to draft strategic housing plan. That has been done. And then we have council adopt strategic housing plan. So it's my understanding that the consultant Urban Matters had presented to council on September 11th. And at that point, it was received for information, I believe. And that's something we probably need to look at on the moving forward, which goes into the conversation we've just been having, is to close this off and make that path forward. We need to set a course for this. So that's kind of where housing is.
Any questions? Okay. And I mean, they can always be brought up at any point in time, so. Over to you, sir.
Okay, moving more into the what was called refined development processes. This has a lot to do with the development services and what we needed to try and do in order to automate and better engage the development community and move things along. As you can tell, there's a fair bit of green there, but there's also been a fair bit of focus in that group to better serve the development community, the residents of Merritt in general, and get things as automated as possible. So we've had some really good successes down there. So we did purchase some online permitting software that is focused right now on building permits only, and it can be expanded to other permits as we get the confidence in how this is working and how it will apply.
Mr. Attorney.
I understand from previous discussions that it's going well with the online permits or the.
Yeah.
So now you say that the province has a system they are testing as well that may be available. I hope this is going to be a money thing that the province now says you must use this program. Is that the way they're leaning?
Well, they've got a number of communities that are working with them right now as they're developing and testing their product. This came up about the time we were ordering the product that we were doing, that they went, hey, we're doing this as well. But they didn't give anybody a lot of pre-notice. So we were already on a path to getting this going. We didn't want to slow down, so we carried on. At some point, there may be an opportunity to move into their process. That said, I'm a little skeptical myself that their process may be about removing powers from municipalities to control their area, right? Because a lot of the policy has been coming out regarding moving things along. Can't remember what the numbers of the different things are, but something as simple as the oversight for professionals is getting watered down already by the province. So my worry is that that's going to come out of our hands at some point, and I'm watching for that. I think we're a little ways away from that being defined. I think there's maybe 8 communities I saw in the last report that are working with them right now to try test their product and see how it goes.
Thank you.
So develop implementation strategy. So obviously with the purchasing of software, we did the implementation strategy. We identified the tools, which is the next one, and we actually got things up and running. So that particular program is running, and we're hoping to expand it to other permits in the future. Obviously, that would come at additional cost, and I don't think we need to jump into that too far until we see what the province is doing with theirs, which is why I kind of mentioned that. Is we just manage with the building permits right now is probably the best place to be. So the identification of local areas of cultural and natural significance may affect future development, engage local Indigenous governments to support this process. That did get a start. There is some mapping going on. There was a consultant initiated on some of this. It's definitely not complete, but it's moving. The general goal of that was to try and map out areas in the valley that would allow us to give developers ideas up front. What areas are culturally significant and what they may have to do to work around them. So it will streamline our referral process with the local Indigenous bands as well, so that we don't get quite as much time spent trying to chase after importance on that end. And if we can identify it early and then have some policy about how they're supposed to manage it. Because right now with the legislation the way it is, if we get a comment that says this area, we think there might be something that's of concern to us, we can pass it on to the developer, but there's not any legislation on a minor level to say that we have to make them do anything. Where if there's a known spot, it gives us a little bit more power to make sure we work around things and get things done properly. If that makes any sense. So that's ongoing. The communication tools to support the development process. One of the things the staff's been doing really well is every time they identify a question that is not readily answerable, they start making up fact sheets. So they have things to hand out with people to help them shortcut processes and give them information. So, you know, it could be something related to a garage build and distances away from houses and property lines. They'll do a fact sheet up for that so that the next time it comes up, they can walk somebody through it fairly quickly without taking a whole bunch of time. So we're trying to streamline that process of providing information specific to the activity that somebody's after. Bylaw updates, fair bit of that has gone on. We've done zoning bylaw, the OCP, the approvals procedures bylaw, the building bylaw, the subdivision development servicing bylaw have all been updated in the last 12 to 15 months. Okay. Community engagement as necessary. That is an ongoing task. It probably should be yellow because it is ongoing. And that's where we don't have within the city, we don't have a defined process for engagement at this point, but we do have different departments engaging at the level of work that they're doing with different groups and developing those relationships. You'll see with the recovery team, they've got their own engagement manager. It seems to me there was a request a while back to actually hire somebody to do that for the city specifically. And I don't think obviously it didn't happen, but we're learning from what the recovery team's doing and we can leverage some of those relationships that they got, and we can do this with staff right now. So. And then council adoption of any required bylaws or policies. We've had a lot of those go through, as mentioned, 2 lines up: zoning, OCP, procedures bylaw, building bylaw, subdivision development servicing. So pretty good run through that particular area. A lot of green on that page. Is there anything on that page or within that realm that is of concern or that you'd like to see different or reprioritized?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right, so the neighborhood section. So basically centered around the city center revitalization plan. So engage consultant to develop a plan. That happened. I believe we have some concept plans all made up. Community engagement. There was some stakeholder engagement and concepts displayed at the open house. So I'm calling that good at this point. I would think that moving forward, the plan needs some refinement. We're at a fairly concept level right now, and we still need to get down into the nuts and bolts of how it's going to go and how it's going to cost out. But we do have a high level plan of where we're going to go. At some point, we need to make sure that you guys have reviewed that plan and had some input into where we're going with that before we start taking the next steps. Landscape standards and facade standards. So that's, I guess, business frontage. There has been some conversations and spelling mistake on it first. Initiated through the design process. So very little of that. There is some older facade type standards that we have, more Western theme. landscape standards, we do have those in our OCP and our zoning bylaws. As it relates to anything that's changed much, not so much. It's just something that gets referred on a regular basis. So the safe neighborhood specifications, spelling mistake again, I gotta stop working after dark. Okay. I call that a red. I'm not even sure exactly what the intent of that was. It's been a while since you guys looked at the plan as well. Have you got any insight in that for me?
Well, I think probably some of it was, at one time we used to have block watch. And then there were some changes with that. And then we had the citizens on patrol, that kind of what came and went, and now we have a newer one. I'm not really sure, maybe somebody on council has a better idea what a safe neighborhood specification would look like. I really don't know. So, Councilor Etchart.
I think it was the septet that they used to do at the community or the community police office, because the situational area where they would kind of give areas to reduce crime in certain neighborhoods, lighting up the neighborhoods, safety fences, things like that.
Okay.
Environmental community engagement, something in, yeah, I think it was septet or something. Anyway, it was lighting up and making changes to lower the chances of vandalism and theft, crime rates nearby, environmental design, I think it was.
Well, I think one example would be the parking lot over at, yeah.
Environmental
Yeah.
design, yeah.
And the one is the curling rink parking lot. We went
Yeah.
with those really bright LEDs,
And it reduced the,
reduced costs. I
Yeah.
mean, we've done it with Spirit Square. We've done it with the benches downtown,
Yeah.
trying to make the neighborhood safer.
that was.
I'm
the
not sure if that
intention.
neighborhood is just for downtown or if that's right through the community. I don't know.
I think that was one of our ideas when we had put that in there, and I think we've actioned it somewhat.
Yeah, so
Ongoing.
as far as specification goes, you'd think then, if that was the type of thing that you were after, the idea would be to try and incorporate that into our design standards for new neighborhoods as well,
Yeah,
is lighting and things like that.
Yeah.
Which is a fairly polarizing issue, I find in a lot of places where some people want more light, some people don't like the light flashing in their windows. And you get the same request on one street, one to remove lights, one to add lights and their neighbors, right? So I don't think you ever win on that, but at the same time, more lighting does definitely help, as we found in some of the parking lots here.
yeah.
Let's turn.
I think the main thing that they're going through, as Councillor Etchart said, is the septet process where you do have your lighting. You don't have landscaping that people can hide behind, so that it's well lit, open spaces that are safe. And then, of course, then you have to get into your sidewalks and curbing, et cetera, like that. But through the other part, there's I think the basic thing is lighting and open spaces where people can't hide behind.
Well, I think when we had that group in, remember we went back to the Civic Center, we went through everything, and then they pointed out that Spirit Square, the design of that now is passé. It's to pull those out and then put trees in for shade and no place for people to just kind of sit. So I think the design situation changes. I mean, at one point in time, it was xeriscaping, right? Now that's no good, and everybody wants giant shade trees now. So xeriscaping, heated up rocks. So things change, but anyway. So I guess it's septic. That's where we're at.
So we'll talk to development services about how that may impact some of the design standards and see if we can start including some concepts in there. So adopt city center revitalization plan, since we're still at a fairly high level of concept for things. We're probably a little ways away from getting close to adopting a revitalization plan, but I assume you'll want us to keep drilling down on what this is going to look like and getting better level of design going. Okay. Budget policies and bylaws to support actioning plan, same type of thing. If that sounds like it's related to the city center revitalization, which is finish the design and start working on budgets so you can start breaking down how it's going to move forward and where it's going to go. long-term capital planning for that.
Counselor Cherney?
I'm gonna go back to that safe neighborhood. I think that okay, come on, give me the name of the group we just met the other day. Age friendly and accessibility. I think they're making great strides into trying to make our community safe. It's in a different form of method. It's more physical. But I think that that also falls under the safe neighborhood. So looking at the plan that was handed out to the Age Friendly and Accessibility Committee the other day, I think would be excellent to include some of the highlights into that, into this plan.
I think the whole plan should be attached to it, actually,
I think so too.
because
Yeah.
that is very exclusive. She did a lot of work on that plan. And the group that we meet are very stuck to that plan, and I think they make some great decisions, so. Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody wants to see that plan, if you haven't seen it, just let me know and I can send it to you.
You can read all 115 pages, or you can wait for the 5-page
So-
summary.
So,
Okay, so we have adopt budget policies and bylaw as required, so that'll be ongoing as necessary. And then adoption of any required bylaws and policies, none of that's happened at this point, as far as I know. We got a little bit of work to do on that revitalization for downtown. And if that's a higher priority for you guys to move forward on over the next little while, we definitely wanna get going on that. One of the things that has been going on the last little while, we started before Christmas, is I've asked Holly and Dave to go out and do some shoe leather work with the community. Stick their nose in the community, in the businesses, wherever they can, and ask a number of questions and listen for where things are at from both a housing perspective, a staffing perspective, a revitalization perspective. We're gonna try and bring back some more information. I know it's probably been done before. But I think the best way to do it is to get out there and actually engage with everybody in the place where they work and try and learn and understand what's going on around us. So Holly and Dave have been taking that. I expect when Dave gets back from holidays in a couple of weeks, they're gonna probably hit the ground running and get things finished up on the first part of that. But we should expect a report probably in the first half of this year on what they've come up with and the things that they heard. So. Okay. All right, any questions on that side of things? Looks like that's just to keep pushing forward, right? Okay. So our economy. So first section here is support local economic development service organizations. This actually leads a little bit more from what I just mentioned about Holly and Dave going out from the economic development perspective. My personal opinion, which we haven't really got into a heck of a lot yet on where we're gonna go with economic development. But I think we should be team managing a lot of this, where it's not just one person doing this in the community. Mayor Getz has done a fair bit of economic development. I'm fairly good at engaging with people on this stuff. Holly's quite interested, Dave's quite interested. And if we can get everybody here engaged in looking for opportunities and sharing information, we should be able to move forward pretty good at attracting business to town and helping out the ones that we do have. So it's something we need to discuss going forward on what this is gonna look like.
So in the past, I've sat on a couple economic development committees. And they start out well, but they do fall apart to a certain degree if somebody doesn't get what they're focused on. We haven't tried it in a while. Maybe we should consider throwing a lifeline out again. I think the last time we did was 3 years ago. To see if there's anybody interested in sitting on a economic development advisory board or committee and see what happens. I mean, yeah, I think that at least then we could turn that one into a yellow, that we're working on something and see how it goes. All you really need is some dedicated people with open minds, and I think things could happen.
Yeah.
So I think probably, we're coming to the end of this term, probably in the next little while, maybe fall or whatever. I'm not sure we'd want to do that now. It might be something that the next council would want to do right away to see if they could actually get that on. I mean, I'm not sure how council feels, but Councillor Hogan.
I feel this is critical. I feel that we cannot wait. I feel that we have to understand how we are going to be moving forward. So in order to do that, in order to understand what we want to achieve, we also have to understand our current issues. I totally agree with you. I think that doing a check in the pulse of our local economy, that would be great. So in the past, there was Business Works handle. In 2015, 2014, there was 3 years of Business Works. There was great feedback. My issue with that one, it was that at the end of the year, so what is the action item? What are we going to be doing with all this information that we have received from the business community? So if we have, things have changed, so we have to pretty much understand now what are the issues and what we want to achieve. So I think that if we can do some type of business work with council, stakeholders, and everyone who is interested in participating and getting all this information, all the data, would be important for us to make that decision. So I think that we should work on this one, bringing that advisory board as soon as possible. We have to have a good understanding, and in my opinion, it cannot wait for the next council.
Sure. I mean, if we want to throw the shingle out again to see if anybody would like to join, I have no problems with that. I think we have discussed this in the past. If that's what council would like to see forward, so that's what we'll do. We have, we've tried it twice and we'll try it again. Not a problem. Yep.
Okay, good. The talks here about develop collaborative projects with Chamber of Commerce, Community Futures, Tourism, Nicola Valley, local Indigenous governments and other stakeholders. So that's something that we've actually already started, at least in the last few months, specifically with Tourism, Nicola Valley, trying to fill in the gap that was created there. And the Chamber of Commerce, I'm not sure where they're at, but I think reaching out to these organizations and trying to create an atmosphere where even if we have a regular meeting, I know you guys have done coffee with council, if we can set up something that brings these organizations in to spitball ideas, share experiences and whatnot, we might be able to tune in a little bit more on what we need to do to move forward and where everybody's at. But I'm getting the feeling that there's a little bit of fledglingism, I guess, in some of the organizations. They've been in and out a little bit. So we want to try and engage with them and get things sort of stabilized and an open communication going on. That makes sense?
So just to bring up to date, I've been meeting with the, once a month, I meet with the Community Futures Manager, Lyle, and we go over things and he brings ideas forward. And when he has some ideas that I think will come to council, we'll get them to council. So we meet every month.
Good.
As far as local Indigenous governments, I think we have talked about renewing the council to council with by band rather than everybody all at once. Because we kind of figure out that isn't going to work very well. So we're working on that as well.
So from
Councilor Hogan.
Okay, two things that I would like to this group to discuss or to explore. So in the past, the city of Merritt was in partnership with other stakeholders were delivering the provincial nominee program. And that has not happened since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the provincial nominee program. So through that program, Community Future was able to bring a few entrepreneurs from other overseas to be able to start a business in our community. So now my biggest concern is talking to some of the business owners here that because of the immigration laws that changed in November 2025, now they are unable to bring, people, and they are unable to find local people here. So what are they going to do? So they have contacted, other organizations to explore. There is another program. It's called Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program. And this is a federal program, and it was 14 communities selected. Vernon, Shuswap, it's part of that program. Merritt is not. So if there is a way that we can, explore the option to be part of that program, would be very, very beneficial for many of our business community.
Could we get you to send an email to the CAO with that group so we can make a contact? Yeah, sounds excellent.
So from the economic development strategy perspective, complete review of current strategy and evaluate progress and goals. I believe that was done a little while back. The revise and reprioritize as required. I'm understanding that was done leading into the consulting services for strategic marketing plans. So the first two activities leads into the marketing plan. The consultant was engaged on that. I believe you guys had a meeting with that consultant shortly after they met with staff on that. This is going back probably what, 18, 20 months ago?
Somewhere around there.
Yep. And there was a number of tasks that were identified for that consultant to work on, tasks 1 through 5. And they are nearly complete, all the work that they were given. And we should be seeing something coming to council, and well done, another spelling mistake. Coming to council in the near future once we sort of sort out the finishing of that particular document and assignment.
Counselor, you good?
Thank you. I'm going to go back again to something that I brought up a few months ago about the city was going to gather information on what kinds of available land we had for developing economic development, whether it was our lands, crown lands that we could access, or other people that had land that they weren't utilizing. Are we up to date with that yet?
There was a lot of work done with that. I recall that going on a fair bit last summer. I believe communications was working on that with the CAO at the time. I can definitely find out. Dave is away right now, but when he comes back, I think he was in the middle of all that as well. We can check, see where he's at on that, but I'm pretty sure a fairly decent inventory was done. So there was some questions floating around. So
It was, we consulted with people like Chris Langhoe.
Yeah.
And Randy Rizak, the realtors in town. And then we had our, when Marilyn was here, she cataloged our lands and we ran it through Jedi. That's who called Jedi at the time. I'm not sure what they're called now. So we do have an inventory package that if somebody wants to know what's going on, we can give them that inventory package. And I think, I'm not sure if it's been updated because since the AI Center has gone in, now Michelle upgrades that and I show you that. I'm not sure that Jedi gets that or whatever they're called now gets that, but we did have a fairly extensive what was available in community, what was not. And that was driven mostly by the realtors and the landowners and investors around the community.
okay. So we'll dig into that and figure out where that's all at. Hopefully it's in a condensed form that we'll be able to present and share with everybody.
Who's in the handout?
Nice to see it on that.
It's actually almost like this. It's a handout situation. Yep.
Okay, then we had engaged stakeholders, including local indigenous governments for feedback. That's been somewhat done from what I understand, talking to different people, so it's in progress. Council is expected, oh, man, I gotta stop working at night. Spelling mistake again. Strategic marketing plan, so when we get the work completed by the consultant, we'll have that conversation about the end product and decide where we're going to move forward from there. Sounds like from what I understand, we're going to have ownership of all the work product that comes out of this. So any changes we need to make at that point, we'll have all the product to work with and modify as necessary. So we don't have any copyright issues with somebody else's work by the sounds of it. Then we'll have to identify a plan for enacting the strategic marketing plan and resource as required, and then evaluate progress on goals that'll be in the future. So we're pretty close to time on that. As far as completion for 2025, getting the plan moving forward. Any concerns there at all? Has much been shared with you on that plan, sort of moving from the initial interviews to where we're at now? Or is this going to be a full leap from that first interview time to completion of project? Has there been anything
I
brought to you?
don't think we've had anything brought up since.
Okay. Okay. All right, so our relationships. So reconciliation action plan. So it's my understanding that we have not done a resolution to adopt UNDRIP and commit to the TRC calls to action. Sounds like something more led by the province than it is at a city level.
Just an update, UNDRIP is not required because it's a UN situation. DRIPA is, UNDRIP is not. So it's more or less a guidance tool. So you're right, it's led by the province at this point in time.
Yeah. So that particular action may have been more of a DRIPA thing than an UNDRIP, but we'll work on that from there. Develop reconciliation action plan. So I think that will come after we start establishing some relationships and MOUs with the band one-on-one. So that has not had a lot of traction, but we're going to try and get that back on track over the next little while. Engage with local Indigenous governments. There's been a fair bit of individual departments at different times going out and engaging with staff and whatnot regarding different things. And we've had a fair bit of progress on this side with the recovery team working with their Indigenous engagement person. So when we leverage that relationship or those relationships, hopefully we'll get this moving forward a little bit better.
I've met with several chiefs and several councillors over the last year and a half, but it's based on when they want to and how they feel they want to. Nothing is official. It's at a coffee shop or it's in a coffee, and that's what they're comfortable with right now. I think that's probably where we'll leave it. One of the things that we have promised them is that there won't be a TNRD involvement. It'll be the city only. TNRD is off the table for them. They will not discuss things with TNRD involved. And that'll have to be worked out with Corbin and his crew over at TNRD when they want to do their thing. So, okay.
So identify the links between reconciliation action plan and other municipal plans and processes. Obviously, if we don't have a reconciliation action plan, we can't develop links. So that has not moved forward, and council has not adopted a reconciliation action plan. So that does feel like a fairly gray area to try and define. So I'm not sure we're gonna have a lot of success getting down to a reconciliation action plan, but definitely we can focus on relationships and making sure that we have conversations and relationships being built. Communications plan. I believe you're going to have a meeting in a week or two with an updated communications plan. I think I saw that in the calendar. Is that correct? Yep. So conduct assessment of current communication plan methods and current future trends and needs. That has been done. Revitalize communications plan and identify key actions, timelines, and implementation of policies and procedures. So from what I understand, there was a draft submitted to council for review, probably received for information late 2024 by the sounds of it. Had trouble finding the exact meeting it might have been involved in, but that's about the time frame I've got on it. So there was some work done on that. We just haven't moved that forward with any direction at this point. So that will be coming to you with a new plan in a couple of weeks at the committee of the whole meeting, I believe it was, correct? For reinitializing that particular activity. And then review and update policies and procedures and adopt and update policy and procedures. We got to get the plan to you first, get everybody in agreement on it, then we get those two items hopefully moving forward. Any questions on communications at all? Tired you all out, I can tell.
Riveting stuff.
Okay. Okay, recreation, parks and culture. Now we're getting into some fun stuff. So develop advisory board to support prioritization, implementation of master, I believe that should say plan. So we do have a recreation advisory committee established in April 2024. Sounds like it's been a bit on again, off again. We are going to try and get back into that with the people involved and figure out where that's moving forward or not in the next little while when Dave gets back from the holidays. One of his top priorities at that point.
So the Recreation Advisory Committee was very instrumental in last year's budget with the rates, the field usage. And one of the things that we made it very clear to the Recreation Committee is that we meet when there's something to discuss. We don't just meet for the sake of meeting.
Right.
Because that does absolutely nothing. And there hasn't been, it's basically being driven by the field users groups when they want to meet, if there's something they want to talk about. And I do believe there was a meeting this week with yourself and the softball president.
Yep.
I don't think it needed to be done through the Recreation Advisory Committee, but that's ongoing.
Okay. Conduct a review and evaluate master plan to determine actions and goals and actions taken and goals met. The master plan priority review established in 2025, from what I understand. Some progress on that. The prioritization, exercise, and develop action plan to move outstanding items forward. They haven't turned a corner from reviewing the master plan to moving too much into this, but we're gonna get moving on that in the next little while. The department that looks after that. So that'll be Dave and crew. Recommendation and allocation of resources to operationalize priorities. So what they tell me, sorry, they again, and wow, spelling mistakes. So some of the priorities that have come out of some of the review that they've done, they have operationalized and budgeted for and move forward on. And you'll see some of that in this year's budget too. I believe there's some lighting in the ballparks that has been discussed, and a few other things the last couple of years that they have been moving on based on the higher priority items that come out of the discussions. So it hasn't been a holistic thing. They've been cherry picking a few of the higher priority stuff and moving on them.
And just to remind council, they did bring forward the recommendation for lights at the ball fields, and we agreed to that. So we've already passed that. Now it's a decision of where the money comes from. So we've already approved that lighting.
Okay, develop recreation subsidy program, collaborate with existing programs such as Jumpstart. I know there's been some discussions on how we may want to change how things are operating, possibly as far as the grants and aids and where things are going to move to. So that's something we want to look at over the next little while and bring that to policy committee and get some insight on to where and if we want to go on that. And we'll try and get moving forward on that in the next little while. And then evaluate progress and outcomes of master plan. Definitely haven't started on that because we haven't got an updated master plan at this point. Any concerns in Parks, Recreation, and Culture master plan? Okay. Infrastructure. So this has been a journey mostly in asset management the last, couple of years? And I'll tell you, it's a lot of work. Compared to where we were and where we're going, this is a lot. So develop and adopt asset management policy. That was done 10th of June 2025. Develop and adopt tangible capital asset policy, 25th of June, 25, June 24. 24, I guess. Yep. Okay. Identify and budget for purchase of asset management program and staff support. Done. PSD Citywide was contractor and vendor for the software we're operating. And development of data for age replacement value, physical condition, et cetera, et cetera. That's ongoing. So we did bring that presentation to you just before Christmas, correct? January? Okay. So that was sort of the culmination of most of the work to get us to an asset management plan based on the information that we have now. Now the job is to start or continue gaining depth of knowledge on the data and the assets that we have and start widening that out and getting better information. This is gonna take some time, just so you're aware. The amount of time it's gonna take to collect information, prioritize it, get it into the system, assess everything with everything that we have in the city. This is gonna be multi-years moving forward. What we do have is an asset management plan that was built largely on the assets that came out of the TCA, I believe, which is a great starting point and a normal starting point for this. But now we have to have all the operational groups go out and build level of detail into that. And that's gonna start really working us towards some really good, solid idea of where we're at with infrastructure, with all the different assets that we have. And that will lead us into some really good long-term capital planning.
Counselor Sharn.
So once the entire asset management has been developed, is there direction given to each department to continually update that? So that it's a living document and ongoing? Or because if we develop our asset management plan and then it sits over here without continual updating because things come and go,
Yeah.
that's kind of a useless document.
Yeah, what you'll find is virtually all the plans that we have should be managed as living plans, asset management, no exception, and it's one of those ones that is virtually daily rather than yearly or every 3 years or something like that. The request that we have in the budget that you'll see for a GIS person is integral to this particular type of work, because they're going to be dealing with that level of data, mapping it out, putting it into the software, and helping everybody use it to their benefit of each of the different departments. So that's one of those priorities that we have in the GIS side of things that we don't have right now. Is nobody's doing GIS work. So we're getting a really large backlog of information in a file ready to be put into the system that nobody's working on right now because we don't have somebody in that position. Food for thought when we're talking budget later. Little plug ahead of time, right?
GIS.
Geographic Information Systems.
So what proportion of the asset management would that GIS person be responsible for? Because in my mind, when I think of asset management, it's tangible and it's not tangible. So what percentage of the GIS person is responsible for asset management? So what I'm trying to say is like how integral is this person for asset management?
Extremely. If you think of
Or you're
something,
plugging it?
I am, but when you think of something like a developer just builds a subdivision,
Mhm.
right? We get all the record information for that. Any things that they built, metering stations or anything that went into what they built, we get all that information. Now what do we do with it? So we have it in a file. But nobody can use it without digging through the file all the time. And files get piled on top of files, and you have to know where to go look for it. The GIS system is going to take that information. They're going to put it into the software, especially if it's something geographic, like spatial, I guess would be the right way to put it. Whether it's curb lines, water lines, PRV stations, anything like that you can place on the map. They're going to take all that information. They're going to map it into our system so that all of our users in the field can see it on their apps on their phone and understand where things are when they're operating their systems. Right now, we have so much of our infrastructure, for instance, that is either paper copy, sitting in a folder ready to go into a digital copy or in digital copy, and it hasn't been fully integrated yet. Anytime we have to go find something, we have to check paper copy, we have to check digital copy, and we have to check the black hole file just in case there might be something in there waiting to go into one of the other two. That makes sense?
So once this GIS person enters all of this data, let's say it takes them a year to enter all of this data, all of our infrastructure, everything. Does that position become redundant because other employees can then enter into the program?
No, it's a fairly specialized skill set to be done well, and we're going to be continually adding to it anyways. And as we get new infrastructure, as an example, that still has to go in. But that person is gonna be able to help all the other departments with analyzing the data, providing data. It's a skill set that not everybody has, so you're not gonna take your average equipment operator that has to go and find a water line and dig it up for a leak and expect him to go in there and find everything himself. He'll be able to look at his app and go with the information that we have to identify where things are, but he's not gonna be able to manipulate the information.
So when I was up at the forestry, we had 3 dedicated GIS analysts up there for the forestry. Right now, we pay TNRD to do some of our GIS, do we not?
We pay them to be our platform or the data to be resident in. So nobody is doing GIS in the city of Merritt right now.
So we're actually paying for this service at this point. A lot.
The platform for hosting the data is, I think, 25 a year, something like that. And we just changed over to them a year or so back. You can see the wheels turning. There's a question coming.
So you paid somebody.
Hit your mic.
I don't understand. You're paying somebody to use their platform?
They're hosting our data. So we own our data. They have software that they're displaying it on.
Oh, so who's putting in our data now into that system?
Well, it's our data, we would. They took all of our data that we had, moved it from our old system into their system, and they are just hosting it and managing the platform itself. We're responsible for our data. Right now, nobody is putting data in the system as we get it, because we don't have anybody doing it.
Okay, that's what I want.
We don't have anybody to render it.
I'm just trying to figure out, so you're paying them approximately 25K a year to do that? Or to hold that information?
Yeah,
And then what would it cost to have our own GIS person?
well, the person is gonna manipulate data. You still have to host it somewhere.
I understand
Right,
that.
so-
I'm not trying to compare it to 25K. I'm just wanting to know what it's going to cost us.
Well, a GIS
Okay.
person is gonna be, pick a number in the budget somewhere.
I need your mic on, CFO. Okay, I can hear you, Mom. Hold on.
I can blur the range out and I'll be close, but I don't get you an exact number.
I don't think that. No.
But it's one of those tough things. I've always said with GIS, for every person you add, it saves everybody else more than it costs to do that, up to a critical mass, depending on the size of the organization. Most people look at a GIS person and go, oh, look, they just make pretty maps, but they do so much more, right? Yes, they can make pretty maps, but their management of our data, it reduces our risk of hitting things that we shouldn't when we dig a hole. It allows us to provide our consultants better information when they're doing work for us. It allows us to manage and keep everything straight for what we actually do have. It's kind of.
Okay, well,
explain.
call me
Really
ignorant,
is.
but I don't recall ever seeing in our previous budgets where we've been paying that fee out. Like, where does that just come
Well,
out
you
of
probably
general
would have.
operating?
Yeah, probably would.
Okay.
It's your bulk, your
It's
bulk
been in the
TNRD
IT,
cost.
it's been in the IT budget.
Mhm.
It used to be under, the old company was called Catalyst, I believe, if you ever saw something in there for that. And it's now being paid for under the TNRD.
Okay.
CFO.
So the position is budgeted at $107,036. That's with benefits, so that's the fully burdened cost. The salary portion would be lower.
Thank you.
I've always had trouble explaining what GIS does, but it's one of those things that you just can't live without. And we're finding right now that, even the recovery team is always looking for information. We're getting people phoning the TNRD on a regular basis, thinking they're doing things for us and they're not. Everybody's looking for help right now. And we have not had that person since Tristan left. We've been patching in a little bit and recognizing that when we had Tristan here, he was hired as an eng tech and I was new to the city at the time. So the philosophy I ran was, we don't have a GIS person, let's hire somebody with GIS skills will I learn more about the city's infrastructure and construction program, and I'll do that, and then I'll slowly teach the other person the rest of it. Tristan was just getting into more of the construction side of things, because he had things caught up pretty good on the GIS side. Now he's been gone for north of a year, and we're sliding way behind again. Okay. So where do we leave off in the asset management here?
I think we were on our way to our environment, were we not? Yeah.
Well, I don't think we quite got that far. Okay, so yeah, where we got to, PSD Citywide was a successful vendor. They did bring us a plan based on the 10 capital assets data that we have. And now we have to drill this down and get it more accurate. So development of data for age replacement value, physical condition, capacity, and spelling again and again. Functionality to support legislated LGDE disclosures. So that's going to be ongoing. This is going to be years in the making, getting ourselves down to the level of detail we need to very accurately represent. What you'll find with the plan that they've given you and the numbers they've given you are probably in the order of magnitude good, but they're lacking detail. It probably won't change a heck of a lot. It's probably going to go up a little bit when we do get better numbers, but inflation, by the time we get all this, it's all going to change numbers anyways. But the general condition assessments that we've done just based on age of infrastructure and whatnot so far is usually holds fairly true when we know that a lot of our infrastructure is in pretty rough shape overall. And that's how the management plan was based. Training for relevant staff and council. So there has been training completed, at least on the public works side, in data collection and assessment. And we're gonna be going out and doing more physical assessments. They're just completing the fleet in the next couple of weeks. They jumped on that first part of the year. So we're gonna have good data on the fleet side of things for capitalization of that, making a long-term capital plan. And then we're gonna start working into more of the infrastructure items as we get a group going. So create asset management plan for each service area. So facilities, public works, parks, all these different areas are gonna have to have asset management plans that are specific to the area of expertise. And they'll all go together into one overarching plan as we develop more detail. Once again, ongoing, we're gonna be years in the making on this. So it's gonna be a lot of work. Adopt the asset management plans. So you did have your presentation. That, I believe, CFO, where we asked for on the adoption side of that, did we just receive that for information, or that was committee of the whole? So at some point on the basis of that plan, are we gonna be ready to adopt, you feel, or do we sit and wait for that to develop more information?
CFO?
So there is a phase this year that will include elements of public engagement, and as we're setting levels of service, rolling out additional elements that will feed back into that plan. So it is an evergreen thing. I think this is a good snapshot and a good basis, but there's still going to be ongoing work that will cycle back into that as a feedback loop.
And then obviously we're gonna move into adopting an updated 10-year capital plan and then moving towards a 20-year. So ultimately that's where we're going, is to be able to look long range and understand everything that we're gonna need. Right now, we've done a fair bit of thumb socks on what we see without data. We have to develop the data to go with it, which is full condition assessments, identification of all the assets, breaking it all down to a point of high detail. Everybody okay with that, other than the GIS authority? Okay. All right, our environment. So update parks, recreation and culture Master plan. Forgot to change something there. Okay, sorry. That'll be climate change adaptation and mitigation plan. Okay, council resolution to commit to being a green community. I'm not aware of that. Is anybody else aware of that? Okay, got that right. So obviously we haven't done that. Develop a community advisory board, including,
So I think we have some things that we've done to become a green community, like the active transportation paths. That's to get people off the highways with their scooters, their bikes, walking. So I think that's part of the green community. You know, we see a lot more charging stations coming up, which to a certain degree is green. So we do some stuff, but as far as you know, committing to be totally green, no, we haven't done that. I don't think you can.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, I don't know if that should be kind of like a more of a pink, maybe even almost a yellow, because that's an ongoing situation, right? You're going to be moving in directions to make your community green, but you know, we're talking about now getting an air quality machine in the community so people can see what the dust levels are, what the smoke levels are, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we bring goats in to eat grass rather than burning it. So I think we do some green stuff, but I mean, you know, we're not jumping on any Greenpeace ship anytime soon, but I think we do what we can when we can.
yeah, I heard a lot more about this in my first 6 months here than I have since. So that might have been sort of the initial flavor at that point. But ultimately, we haven't got a resolution of council to commit to it, but we can definitely change that to yellow with the idea that we're implementing some things that move in that direction. Make sense? Yep. Develop a community advisory board.
Oh,
You're not gonna hit me with that.
Councilor Egan,
No,
it's the talking spoon.
thank you. I just wanted to mention that I think if you had a resolution, it would be inundated with, we're gonna do this and this and this and this, and as technology and the rest of the world changes with green initiatives, that you'd be constantly changing it.
I think you're right. Resolutions like that to commit in the moment are hard to manage, you know, for the future, you know, so.
I mean, the province committed to no more piston vehicles by 2030. Now they've completely scrapped that, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some things you can commit to. Other things you just have to kind of be a cork in the ocean and go with the flow and see where it goes.
And work towards doing the right
Yeah.
things and getting better at doing things, so. Yeah. All right, so we don't have an advisory board. And definitely doesn't include stakeholders and local indigenous governments if we don't have an advisory board. Is there an interest in moving in that direction? Let's admit there was a few years ago. It's in here. Okay.
Would the rec commission the rec committee not have, wouldn't they cover kind of some of that, or am I off on that? Because this is update Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan. I guess they're more just for recreation.
Yeah, that thing on the top. Another one of my spelling errors.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right? We're actually in climate change adaptation and mitigation plan.
Okay.
What
Okay,
I-
sorry.
What I need to do, and I do apologize, I should get somebody to proofread my stuff before I send it out, because. But then you'd have nothing to do and pick apart, so you'll find something.
Kind of want to make a comment on this, but I want to be careful how I say it. When we're moving in climate change mitigation, especially mitigation, I think we need real professionals involved in that. And I think a board of locals, I mean, if you look at the Stuix situation right now, that we do have a city representative on that, and then there's First Nations representative. But I mean, it's a fairly straightforward situation what they're doing. But I think if we're talking, you know, dikes and bridge replacement and Q200 and stuff like that, I'm not really sure that's an advisory board should be getting involved in that. I think maybe to a certain degree that could cause more issues than anything else.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think this would be talking higher level than physically what's going on that stuff right now. That said, the develop and adopt a climate change adaptation and mitigation plan. So we've started a staff-led project in the last couple of months. As it turns out, grant funding requires in a lot of cases for us to actually be able to report on this, and we haven't been able to report on that yet. And we don't want to be missing out on any grants. So we've started moving forward on that in the last little while, which makes that yellow. Assessment of municipal infrastructure and fleet to develop green retrofit and renewal plan. We have had a couple of EVs purchased. We had one initial one, I think it's about 4 or 5 years old now, the development services one. Then we got the two that we funded through grant money last year. And we've actually investigated in the last little while solid waste truck that's electric. Problem is, it was like $300,000 more than a regular solid waste truck, so didn't look like it was overly advantageous at the time. But they had them in stock ready to go, and right now we're waiting years for trucks. You think? Yeah.
I do believe at one point in time, we made a move to go to LED lights on the vehicles, so they didn't have to be running. The lights could continue working without the vehicle running. I think we did that back in 2016, somewhere around there. So,
And we are on a regular program of updating our street lighting and whatnot to LEDs and reducing our power consumption on those as well. So there's some things we're doing, 100%. Review of building standards and incentive programs available for green development and retrofits. I think that's gonna be something that we can focus on once we get this climate adaptation plan completed. It's gonna highlight opportunities there for us to move in that direction. So far, no.
To go back to the topic of becoming more of a green community, I brought this up before. We are in the process of purchasing a new I just call them garbage trucks, solid waste truck. So is there any appetite to move towards composting? Where those houses that wish to compost could purchase the container, and then that truck that is not going to be used anymore could be a composting truck, and they go and pick up the green bins. I don't know if there's an appetite for that, but that to me, I see more and more communities moving towards composting. And I know it's costly. I'm just wondering how we could refit or reuse an existing asset for that purpose.
Okay, great question. Great idea. We've talked about this before, doing composting. The thing that gets in our way is the lack of, I hate to use the word person again on staff, that can take our solid waste program to the next level. We operate it out of Public Works right now. With a little bit of work with our Inch-Tech, but we do not have capacity to think about these things on a wider basis at this point. So we kind of do it off the side of our desk. So that's sort of an impediment to moving forward with adding new programs.
I mean,
trying
you
to
have
do
nowhere to
something.
put the stuff,
Yeah, but it takes somebody to plan it out.
person and plate.
Yeah, plan it out. The truck that we're replacing right now, I believe the commercial one, we're trading a truck in, rather than having a truck surplus after the fact. So that will not be here after the fact. On the residential side, don't think we've got anything set for that yet. That'll be another year or so down the road. Yeah.
would it be an idea to talk to TNRD about partnering to a plan, which would be easy enough for me to do? I can test the waters on Thursday to see if there would be an interest in working together, because at least we could use their spot. I'm just not sure what would be involved in that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it could go into the shrub and grinding waste and whatever. At one point in time, we did have composting bins, black ones at one point in time that were bought. You could buy them from the city at one point in time. I think it was about back in 2012,
I think there's one still sitting in the yard.
Yeah, there should be one still sitting in the yard.
Yeah.
But you were able to purchase them, and I could still see them around town. Was it? Okay, so Or was it the water barrels? You could, so anyways, that was done and I think it was received quite well. I'm not sure how many people are still using it, but it was a situation where maybe we look at doing that again.
Yeah, the bins that you would put out with your regular solid waste for compost, I've lived in a community that's done that before. In the hot summer, those things get pretty rancid in a couple of days, right? So that was the one negative on that whole program, was that whole side of my house. Yeah, it was terrible.
I gotta be honest with you, remember the little one you gave me?
Yeah.
I've used the smithereens out of that and it works very well.
So I think that's great. And I think there are other options. I don't recall those black bins, but maybe we could even get into partnering with residents that want to and get those they're about this size and they rotate. So people that want to do their own composting in their yard, I know it doesn't help if you're in an apartment, but for residents who are in a house, maybe we partner with the city and the residents, and they go together and they purchase one of those composting, and you just turn them, and what you do with it afterwards is, but I think if people are interested in compost, and I think we should try and come up with a program that will help support it. So
Well, I
think
do
there-
know, and like I say, I don't mean to bang the drum on that again, but we've been dealing with this type of stuff on the side of our desk. And it's been hard enough keeping up with the contamination reduction plan that we have to do with Recycle BC that we keep getting fined on because our numbers keep going up. Just trying to manage our recycling side of things and not get fined is a lot of work. And it's not working, because I'm not sure everybody cares to the level of managing the recycling in a better way. We get a lot of stuff into recycling we shouldn't, and it takes us a lot of time to manage the program that we have to report to Recycle BC just on that to get the funding that we get for them.
So then maybe individual purchasing for individual homes is a better idea than having things picked up.
Could very well be, yeah. But in the future, as we grow, it's something we'll have to consider is splitting solid waste out of its world that lives under the roads portfolio and public works. It's something we can do better. It's probably not something that's got to be done immediately, but it's, as the city grows, we're gonna have to start thinking about separating out a couple of these portfolios and doing better at it. Okay, talked about fleet, standard incentive programs available for green development, spelling, retrofits. I think we got all that. Okay, good conversation. There's probably the subject of compost, because we're running our own compost facility as well. There could be a synergy in that. We'll have to check the legislation on what we have to do on our own compost site. But if we're able to add compostable material to it, not just the bio waste, that may work. At least then you're picking it up, putting it into a same area and then turning something out of it later that's a usable product. So give some thought to that. Care, safety and resiliency. So healthcare advocacy. Develop council subcommittee to support advocacy actions. I haven't seen a subcommittee yet, so I'm assuming we don't have one, other than Mayor Getz, who seems to be pounding that drum pretty hard all by himself.
I have a good director.
See,
It's not just me, it's our director. She's fantastic.
There was we all sat on that healthcare board, yeah,
Yes.
and it just kind of died
Yeah.
about a year ago.
Yeah, they
Oh, okay.
closed it. Concert, oh, yeah.
so that's a red on that. If it's something that you think we should do, we can move forward with that and try and garner some interest in it. If you think we're okay for this year, not focusing there, that's fine as well. We have the engagement with community members and stakeholders, including health professionals, local indigenous government. That is an ongoing thing. I've seen a fair bit of that happening, depending on the person. Talking about things, we're doing some of that at the staff level as well. Another spelling mistake. Holy smokes. That's terrible. Identify other external partnerships and or align with provincial advocacy efforts, again, ongoing. And there's a lot of partnerships being built over time. And then develop and adopt advocacy action plan and resource as appropriate. That's a negative at this point. Is that something of interest overall that we should be working on?
Councillor Eden.
Well, does this have anything to do with, you know, making sure that our hospital stays open?
That can include it, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Mayor Getz has that underway too. Yeah. He knows when and when not to talk about it.
Okay.
Councillor Richard.
Well, I just echoed the same thing Councillor Egan said, because I think we have more doctors here, and the director in Callum seems to have a better handle on keeping nurses there to support the doctors, so we don't have as many closures. So I think, and we attended the Care Network meetings, and people seem to actually have a physician. Of course, that could be changing this month with the retirement of Dr. Ross, but we seem to be in better shape than we were 2 years ago. So feels like it's kind of, we're in far better shape in 2026 than we were in 2024. So it seems like an ongoing partnership. Anyway, that's my only thought.
Sirens. Emergency preparedness and response plan. So engage in consultation for provincial legislative changes. That's an ongoing thing with relationship building and identification of opportunities. Review status of plan development and evaluate actions to date. Past plans exist that require review and updating. So fair bit of work to be done in there from years of different plans that we're still working on moving forward. I don't think much has happened yet, but recognize that we do need to get going on that. Develops training plan for all city staff and council. So we're pretty much good with pretty much all the staff on the ICS 100, and the EOC training is in progress. So that is happening. Develop communications and public education. So the crisis communications plan has been prepared within draft emergency management plan. So we're not done all that yet. That'd probably be a yellow. It's in progress. And then council to adopt plan and related policies or bylaws. So the emergency measures bylaw 24 with new emergency management plan near draft completion, all kind of ongoing. Any concerns in that part of the world?
Well, I think overall, through TNRD and other mayors I've talked to, the emergency measures bylaw 2024 was not received all that well, because there's a lot of roadblocks and a lot of silliness in it that has to be removed.
Okay.
And I think that's why they backed down on it. It was to the point of being ludicrous with what they were asking, and it was going to be costly to communities. So I think we'll probably see some update on that fairly quickly.
Okay. So,
Morning.
I don't know if this is the correct arena, but it's emergency preparedness. I'm just wondering if we're any closer to having a permanent location for ESS presently in the cadet hall. And if we do ever have an evacuation, heaven help it, because you won't be able to hear anything. You'd have to shout to the person across the desk, and the acoustics are very bad in that building. So, you know, I'm hoping that sooner or later, we're going to find a permanent building that will be appropriate for ESS.
yeah, we do have some ideas, and actually I've asked Adam just last week and Dave to start talking to the stakeholders in ESS, start thinking more about the EOC and the overall community of identifying exactly what the needs are and start working towards a plan. I mean, obviously the airport is one thought. We can think about things like adding space or doing space differently over in the cadet hall. We have the old CPO building that if that takes on a new life, that might be an opportunity there. So what I'd really like them to do is do a needs assessment first to make sure we fully understand from an operational perspective what is the best world for ESS to live in and what their facility would look like. And then we can start tailoring solutions towards that. So I'd hate to make a decision without engaging with everybody first. Because then we're just band-aiding again, and band-aids have a tendency to fall off, so. Okay, so overall, nothing insurmountable going on here. I'm not hearing any major will to do anything different than what we're doing. Just keep plugging away as we get that right. For your knowledge, this is something that I think we need to sit down and do once a year. So I don't think you've looked at this since it was started. It's hanging up in the wall in the hallway. But having a sit down discussion on these things and making sure we have the opportunity to adapt, take things out, add things in if necessary on a regular basis is probably something we need to look at doing. I would suggest probably early in the year after Christmas each year would be a good time to sort of set priorities for the upcoming year. Okay. Any concerns on that at all? Okay, so
we'll go to 4.2. Strategic housing planning and discussion. Led by Ms. Holly Ferris, but I'm assuming you're going to be taking that.
yes.
Over to you.
So overall, obviously we have some things going on right now that are sort of short-term goals with trailers and what we're going to do. And when that materializes into something, we have some decisions to make. The conversation we had at the beginning of the session, I think if we look at this from a high level perspective and try to understand what our goals are, and we have to establish a goal first. And I think we've gone at this a few different ways over the last 18 or so months, trying to come up with something that would get everybody to agree on a direction. But I think if we simplify this into some initial goals, pick a goal, and then we can work on a little bit more detail within that goal without hopefully going back into other goals at that point. So I think if we look at establishing overall housing goals, there could be a housing corporation. There could be working with housing partners. That generally is using city housing dollars to help finance and obviously try and get more dollars, and working with a housing partner, as Wellness, for instance, does this, that are going to manage a facility from there on in, and we're a little more hands off other than using the funding and whatnot to keep things rolling. We can do a build and rent scenario where whether it's, you know, an apartment building, whether it's modulars, whether we continue to use the trailers, we can rent, or we can build and sell, or a combination of a few things. What I don't think we've established at this point is what we see this looking like 4 or 5 years down the road. And like I said, my preference for me, when we have a influx of money like we do have from the housing grants that we've got and availability of more money, it'd be really nice to keep things rolling and keep things building so that we're regenerating all the time. It's very difficult if your format is going to be a format that's based 100% on below market housing. That's going to be a tough market to stay in. It's going to be a tough market to turn money over in. There has to be some form of profit and be able to put money away for, you know, repairs and things like that going forward. And what concerns me a lot is we would just run something potentially into the ground, run out of money, and then it turns into something nobody's looking after. Kind of like a Chicago style project, I guess, which is what we don't want to see happen, at least in my perspective. So I was hoping to have a conversation on setting a high level goal for this, so we can start tailoring our efforts in a particular direction. And I was hoping if you could give us some idea on yourself of, you know, those choices, or do you see anything else as an end game that you'd want to talk about?
Let's have Councilor Baxter.
So I looked at this over and I think I would be happy with going with housing partners first. So pairing up with somebody that could help us build and then we can sell from there. If we have to, we could go to a housing corporation as my second option. Third would be build and sell, but I would not build and rent. It's just too risky and too dangerous.
Thank you. Councillor Hogan.
I understand that you want some recommendation from council to be able to explore, to develop that specific idea. On this side of the table, for me, it's difficult to make a recommendation from either one. So I want to see a breakdown. I want to see financial projections. I want to understand how much it's gonna be housing corporation. When we talk about revenue, it's very limited. You know that it's tax, it's fees and grants. I think I'm not forgetting anything else. So I see this as a new revenue stream. And that's what I need to understand. How much a breakdown, how much revenue are we going to expect with every option? What is going to be the expense? And how is that going to help the taxpayer? So by bringing this revenue, is that going to have an impact in the annual tax that they are going to be paying? Perhaps it's going to be a reduction, right? Perhaps it's gonna maintain. Perhaps we are going to be able to put some money aside into the reserves. I need to have that understanding to be able to say, yes, I want to go with corporation rather than build and rent. So we need that information.
Okay, so if I may, what I'm hearing there sounds like an interest in something that's gonna sustain and provide revenue for the city being a long-term goal. That sound right?
So I sit on the Mayor's Housing Caucus with the Mayor of Burnaby, Mayor Penticton, Mayor Prince George, Williams Lake, and Merritt. Mayor Hurley is the only one that has a housing corporation. And they've had that for a number of years. It was before Mayor Hurley got there. Now, it works well for Burnaby because of the size. And it does, and it helps with their tax base. The other communities, Penticton, Prince George, Williams Lake, and Merritt, we've been discussing what that would look like for us. So I think what I could do is probably tap Mayor Hurley on the shoulder and ask him for some overall, what their housing corporation looks like, what they bring in, what they spend, because he's the only one that actually has what. They have quite a few, I think 115 different things they have, and they're growing more. So I know Penticton, Prince George, Williams Lake, and ourselves are all looking at the same situation. We meet at the Manufactured Homes Association every year. We talk about things, but housing corporation, it's a lot. It's a lot. We're talking GIS. We're going to be talking at least one or two other people to have to make that work. I'm not sure our community is large enough for that, but I'll get the breakdown from Mayor Hurley and see what he does on that. People do talk about housing partners, but we've run into a situation in town where some people do not want to work with a housing partner unless it's a housing partner of their choice. They are worried that once it starts, so much of it will be turned into housing that they were not ready for. So I think, I don't think we can land on anything right now, but I'll get some information from you from Mayor Hurley. Councillor Charney.
I agree with Councillor Olgan. I think that we have to look at all options before we make a decision. We have to look at the pros and the cons, the costs, the expenses, the income, etc. It's not a quick and easy decision. There's a lot going on being involved. And I really think that we should stay away from the affordable, attainable housing. We've seen other communities that have gone into this, and it's been a disaster. So I think that right now we have a lot of housing units for lower income right now. So but I would like to, there are different options. You've talked about the fellow with the containers. And there is a housing unit in Kamloops, but that is, again, that's an attainable. And I would kind of like to swing away from that.
Well, you remember when we went to the Vision Care opening?
Yes.
That's one of the partners we're trying to deal with as well, because he's very adept at that. So I think he's doing 9 of them right now.
Okay. We just have to, as the CEO says, we have to protect our asset. It was interesting, a couple of weeks ago, they had a brand new facility they opened up in Vancouver. And within 2 weeks, there were some of the units totally destroyed. They were brand new. So we have to protect our assets. So we have to look at what type of asset we want and that will grow money for us. So lots of decisions, lots of options, and it's not a simple this or that answer.
Counselor Regan?
Yeah, I agree with both Counselor Charney and Ogun. But I also look at the where you're talking about housing partners. Are you looking at developers or are you looking at other partners such as the one that Counselor Baxter mentioned, you know, like Ask Wellness Partners with somebody else? I think if you're talking about developers, and it really will depend on what the market value is going to be. They're not going to work with us unless it's market. Yes,
Yeah.
they won't, yeah.
Yeah, so the intent of partners in this particular context would have been, you know, a management partner such as, you know, Ask or somebody that would run the facility afterwards. Not necessarily partnering with a developer. If that's something you want to look at as well, we can put that.
But then that does target specific social groups, right?
Mhm. And that's why there's some people who do not want to work with certain groups.
Yes.
If I had to do it, I would be build and sell. Build it, sell it, invest, build and sell it, invest, build it, sell it, invest. That's the way I look at it, for me anyways, but
Well, and then put that back into the city and
the
reuse our,
housing, back into the housing fund so you can continually build and sell, buy, build and sell.
well, you have to look at what we're built, what we have, what's being built in the community right now. We're overstocked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Or do you just sit on everything for a little while?
Well, we can't afford to. We have to make a decision on that other thing you said we have to talk about in closed
Yes.
session.
Well, no, we're not sitting on that, but I'm just saying, once that money rolls in, I mean, the more it sits, the more interest it makes, the bigger it gets. You know, I don't think you're like you say, I mean, we're looking at, we're looking at a fairly large housing thing behind Snake Oil. That's a lot of units and there's houses going up and stuff. So I'm not sure we're in the same situation that we were in 2022, 2023. I think I see something better. Councillor Turner.
I don't mind an option of build and sell, but we only have so much property too. So we have to be cognizant of city assets being used for that.
Yeah, and then
So anyway, I think it's a huge project and we have to look at all options and hopefully staff one day will have the time and be able to present us with all options.
Well, like I said, I'll talk to Mayor Hurley and see what they do, what it looks like and what it costs to run that and the successes and failures.
So to that end,
I will be able to give you an update on Friday. It all depends. He's a busy guy.
so to that end, if obviously the large scale type, what we're gonna do, we're still in a bit of flux, waiting to make that final determination of where we go with the trailers and whatnot. But if we were to pitch individual project without worrying too much about an end game of a housing authority or a corporation or big scale things, and when we can do something, then do something else, project by project, would you be interested in seeing something like that bit by bit instead of trying to bite off the whole enchilada? Okay.
Yep, that would give us start to give us an idea of what we're looking at.
Okay, I have had a few ideas on things that we can look at. And we've done a bit of due diligence on some properties and whatnot already, expecting things to move forward. And I'd really like to find a way to make some advancements back in the forward direction instead of removing all these units from the community. So, and it'd be nice to get a couple of quick hits on these things. So got a couple of good ideas, I think, on that we can work on. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Aaron. Let's watch. She's bringing you home some fries or something. With that, thank you, staff. Thank you for the preparation. Thank you for everything. Terminate.
I can't believe the amount of spelling mistakes they put in this thing.
And